Hey guys, I have loved seeing some of your words that you guys are coming up with. They're really looking awesome. So we're just going to do a couple of shading reminders. If you haven't already, after you've outlined in preferably marker, make sure you go back and erase your pencil lines, clean it up, make it look nice, okay? Then we're going to start with our shading. I'm going to show you two techniques actually. The first one is what I'm looking for, which is just using your colored pencils to add your shading. So I'm actually going to pick out three similar colors, but kind of a light to dark hue, because I'm going to show you some color blending as well. And we did this with our ribbons that we worked on. So think about that ribbon project and how we colored from one primary color into another primary color, making all of those intermediate colors in between. And we can use that same idea, but you can mix up and do whatever colors that you want. You do want them to mostly be similar colors for the most part, or you end up making mud sometimes, so you have to be careful. You could do this with kind of a monochromatic color scheme. You could do a complementary color scheme, but you need to be careful if you're doing that. Again, mixing those complements too much can get you that brownish or grayish. Or you could do an analogous color scheme. That would be like your oranges, yellows, something like that could be analogous. I'm kind of working more with a monochromatic color scheme for this one. And my requirement is that the colors show, the letters show value or show shading. So I'm still using my famous shading skills. We should be experts at this now, using that light touch to really kind of slowly add a layer of color. I'm going back and forth in very little motions here, not doing huge areas, okay? Little motions to make this nice and smooth, and just getting my nice light area of color down. And then once I do that, I'm going to go back in a slightly different direction to add my darker value on. You want to be careful around any edges if you're not going in that same direction as the edge. So like around this edge, that's easy, but going up to this side is a little bit harder. You don't want to leave a white gap. Okay, I'm going to come back up to this top edge, add my other layer, change my direction slightly. I'm going to start to speed this up. You guys know it might be a little bit slower going for you, but again, I've been teaching this longer than you've been alive. You had to hear it one more time, didn't you? And I'm just building up this top edge more. That's going to be my dark value, is that top edge. But it's that slow build, really laying down that color, bringing it down a little bit so the values blend in, has a nice smooth even transition. Back to my top, add some more color. If you guys want to get that kind of shiny look on your darks and then try to blend it in some, I'm okay with that with the graffiti art. We're not trying to really make something look realistic. We want it to stand out. So if you want to add a little bit of that to it, you can. But again, it has to change from that dark to that light. So right now, I would have a pretty good monochromatic from dark to light shading on my letter. But I'm going to do some color blending too. So I kind of left some of this alone to start to do some of my color blending. I'm going to bring this down just a pinch more with a light value. So now I'm going to go to my next color, and I'm going to put this real light over some of where I had my first color. And then I'm going to bring it down more. Okay, so you can see that color transition there. And if I wanted to, I could actually go back to a dark. So I could go like dark value, light value, dark value again. That's something you can play with. Your values can change however you want and wherever you want on your letter, as long as you're showing me value changes on each letter. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of my last color here to transition one more time. And again, you get the idea with that. Okay, but it's overlapping to blend my colors together. I could do this with more of a burnishing kind of effect by adding in that dark again and moving that dark up my page some and overlapping my colors that way. That's a possibility. There's so much that you can do with shading. If you guys are interested in it, you got to start doing some of your own research, looking at YouTube for ideas. There's just millions of ideas out there just waiting for you. Go back in with this color and blend that in a little. Still leaving a little bit of that light so we have a good transition there. Kind of starting to burnish my colors together a little bit more though for this transition. Okay, I know I didn't finish that side off, but you can see what it looks like there, because there is one last technique that I really want to show you guys that's pretty cool. You can combine marker and colored pencils for a pretty interesting effect. So I'm going to show you just a little pinch of that. Please know that if you decide to do this method, it does take longer. Okay, so I'm going to start out with marker, just a solid color. You have to use permanent marker or it really shows all of the lines if you don't. You can't stop when you're using permanent marker in the same section. You have to keep going and kind of work while that marker is still wet to transition around things, or that's when you end up with those kind of hard edges and looks like it has all those lines. You can actually shade with marker by overlapping different markers, but you really need pretty professional, high quality permanent markers to do that. Sharpies will work okay, but even those aren't the best. So I'm just going to do a little piece here. You can see that nice flat even color that's there. I'm going to wait for a minute for that to kind of dry, and I'm going to switch over to my analogous colors here. When you're doing this, the marker color has to be lighter than what you want the color to end up. So my letter, I actually want to be orange. So I chose yellow as my background color. If I were doing this letter, I would probably choose like the lightest blue option I could find for a Sharpie. Okay, so keep that in mind. And again, if you want to do this, it does look awesome. It is going to take you longer. So keep that in mind. Only do this if you are caught up on all of your other work and you're really just looking for something to do. It is a lot of fun. Makes your letters really pop, really stand out. But I want to make sure you guys have time to finish. So this is not required. Okay. So now I'm going back with that colored pencil. Still using my nice shading techniques. So you still have to show value on your letters in colored pencil. It's just that you added that first layer in marker. And that really makes everything just look so much smoother when you do that. Mine is still a little bit damp, so it's not going as great as it could. But usually by the time you finish with one letter coloring it all in, you're good to go with the part you started on. So now I'm going back with that second layer. Gonna add that. Transition this down. Now really, I could just do this with marker and one colored pencil like this if I wanted. It still kind of creates that blended effect, which I like. Again, there's no actual color requirements. It's just a shading requirement. Put a little bit more of my darker orange up here. I'm even going to do like a little burnishing technique, which is where you really do apply that pressure and get it shiny. And then blend it in so I can really show those darks and lights. Okay guys, so I think that's looking pretty good with that dark to light. I hope you enjoyed these ideas and you have a place to start, pick out your colors, and get color in today.